And for more on this, we're now being joined by Colonel David B. Des Roches, professor near East South Asia Center for Strategic Studies, National Defense University. He's joining us live from Washington, D.C. Welcome to the broadcast, sir. I'm going to first start by asking you that Iran's Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has said that the nation need not be anxious as the administration of the country will not be disrupted. How do you assess this statement coming out of Tehran while search is still going on for the Iranian president?
Well, I think he's speaking in terms of the worst case scenario for him, which is that the president of Iran and the foreign minister will probably be found to be have died in the accident. So I think he's trying to say that, you know, the institutions of state will function as normal, that we have people who will step up and fulfill these obligations and these duties, and that there will be no disruption because of the death of Raisi.
Right. So the search and rescue teams are within 2 kilometers of a potential location where the chopper has crashed. What do we know with the on-ground situation right now and perhaps the condition of the Iranian president and the foreign minister?
We don't know much. There are conflicting reports, as you noted. There had been reports that some survivors had made radio contact or cell phone contact. There are other reports that say that it's impossible to have cell phone contact in that region. I think that it's safe to say, though, that you know, in rugged terrain, if a helicopter has a forced landing, usually there's some significant damage there. And because it is so cold and remote, the longer that these guys are out there, the greater the chances are that, you know, if they have not died on impact, that they'll succumb to either blood loss or shock or exposure as a result of the trauma they've had and then the isolation to the elements. So we don't know much, but the longer this is taking, the less chance there is that they'll have survivors from the crash.
Right, Colonel Roches, countries around the world are offering help from Turkey to EU. The mapping system has also been activated, and they are expressing concerns regarding the chopper accident. What will other nations be looking out for at the moment, especially the West?
I think the main concern is if Iran seems to feel that, you know, this had been caused by an outside power, they might feel compelled to take some offensive military action, either directly or using their proxy network in Yemen, Lebanon, Syria, or Iraq. So I think that's a concern. The other concern I think they'll be looking for is to see just what the nature is of the succession to Raisi. Raisi is often spoken of as a possible supreme leader himself to replace Khamenei. Now that he might be out of the picture, the Revolutionary Guard, which is the strongest political player in Iran and has taken over about 40% of the Iranian economy, they will probably, they won't just sit back. They're going to inject themselves in the process of getting another heir apparent to ensure that their interests are protected. So there's the possibility of political turmoil, but that'll be more long-term.
I also want to touch upon how bad weather has been cited as the cause of the crash, and that is further complicating the rescue efforts. You mentioned of the rugged terrain there where the chopper has been crashed. Talk to us about the risks of flying a helicopter in such an adverse weather conditions. The chopper used was the American Bell helicopter in use. Also touch upon the condition of the 3 convoy of helicopters. 2 of them have returned back safely, but the one carrying the Iranian president and the foreign minister is missing.
Yeah, good question. So I've actually flown in the Bell 212, and it's used widely around the world. It's a very reliable helicopter that has served many countries for decades. It's currently used, you know, for example, by the Sheriff's Department at San Diego, Fire and Rescue. The fact that you had 3 helicopters, one goes missing, and the other 2 are unable to report where that happened indicates just how bad the weather was. They were probably not in visual contact with each other. And I think you have a strong possibility that when you're in fog, it's easy for pilots to become disoriented. It's easy to get momentarily lost. And over rugged terrain, the risk is that you can fly into something, a mountain or a wire, typically. The other problem you have is of mechanical difficulties. The 212 has two engines, so it's less likely to have a complete mechanical failure. But if you have a failure of the hydraulics, which turn the rotor blade, then the helicopter loses its power. And unlike an airplane, which can glide without power for a certain degree, a helicopter just goes down. It goes into an auto rotation mechanism where it goes straight down and the body of the helicopter spins around, usually at a pretty high speed. And that landing for an auto rotation, sometimes it's successful, but on rugged terrain, you have a great chance of destroying the helicopter and injuring the people within it. So this is a very difficult thing to do, and it's very, very probable that, as a matter of fact, I would think it's prohibitively probable that this was an accident that just happened to have a very high-profile victim in it.
Right, Colonel Roches, you've concisely rounded up the features of the Bell 212 chopper, and you've also flown that. I also want to speak on how this incident also puts a spotlight on Iran's aviation industry, especially with international sanctions on Tehran, which perhaps makes it difficult to obtain the parts of the aircraft.
Well, that's a good point. So Raisi himself is a sanctioned individual for his role in the death panels in 1988 that killed about 5,000 political prisoners. You know, the Iranian state likes to say that they have options, that they have alliances with, or alliances of convenience with Russia, with China, with other countries, but they still rely heavily upon equipment that was purchased by the Shah, and their ability to maintain some of this is questionable. But you know, we saw during the brief period of JCPOA, when there was some transfer of aircraft to Iran, that was used to move troops into Syria. So I think the sanctions regime is designed to prevent military use and security use of these. It is possible that there was, say, some failure of maintenance due to the inability to send people directly to this. If they had access to the Bell plant, they might have been able to get more. But you know, this helicopter is produced under license in Italy. It's a very common type of helicopter, and there's no shortage of people around the world who know how to maintain it and how to build on it. So I'm not sure if sanctions is that big of a contributory factor. I think weather is more likely to explain it.
Right, Colonel Roches, thank you so much for taking our time and joining us here on WION with your insights on this fateful incident.
Thank you.